Imagine, you're a little boy growing up in a broken home. Your father works brutal, low-paying jobs, but when he gets injured, there's no health insurance, no savings, no support. You watch your family struggle just to survive, often wondering where the next meal will come from. Most kids would accept this life as their destiny, but Howard Schultz didn't. That little boy would one day rise from public housing projects to build one of the most recognized brands in the world, Starbucks. His story isn't about coffee. It's about resilience, vision, and the belief that your beginnings don't define your ending. Howard Schultz was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. He grew up in a working-class neighborhood called Canarsie, in a government housing complex for poor families. Life there wasn't glamorous. It was survival. His father, Fred Schultz, worked one blue-collar job after another. Truck driver, delivery man, factory worker. There was no stability, no sense of security. His mother, Elaine, tried to hold the family together, but money was always scarce. When Howard was 7 years old, tragedy struck. His father slipped on a sheet of ice while working as a delivery driver and broke his ankle. With no health insurance, no workers' compensation, and no savings, the family's fragile financial situation collapsed. Howard watched his father lose not just his job, but also his dignity. The pain of that moment seared itself into his young mind. He later said, "That image of my father, helpless on the couch after getting hurt, is still with me. I saw what it meant to be treated as if you didn't matter." Growing up in poverty, Howard often felt like an outsider. He wore cheap clothes, lived in a rundown building, and envied the kids who had nicer things. But rather than let it break him, he made a vow to himself. "One day, I will escape this life. I will create something better." For young Howard, sports became a way out. He excelled at football and basketball, playing with a determination that mirrored his hunger for a better life. His athletic talent earned him a scholarship to Northern Michigan University, the first person in his family to attend college. It wasn't easy. Even with the scholarship, Howard worked multiple jobs, bartending, tending bar, and selling blood to cover living expenses. But college gave him exposure to a different world. It planted in him the belief that he didn't have to be trapped by his past. After graduation, he took sales jobs, first selling coffee makers, then working at Xerox. He proved himself as a gifted salesman, charismatic, relentless, and able to connect with people. But deep down, Howard was restless. He didn't just want a job. He wanted to build something meaningful. In 1981, while working for a Swedish company that sold kitchen appliances, Schultz noticed something curious. A small Seattle coffee company called Starbucks was buying more drip coffee makers than anyone else. Intrigued, he decided to visit. At the time, Starbucks wasn't the global giant we know today. It was just a tiny chain with 4 stores, selling roasted coffee beans and equipment, not freshly brewed coffee. But when Howard walked in, he felt something different. The aroma, the passion of the founders, the love for quality coffee, it struck him deeply. Schultz later recalled, "I walked into Starbucks for the first time, and I knew I was home." He was so inspired that he begged them to hire him. At first, the founders resisted. They didn't see the need for an ambitious young salesman. But Howard's persistence eventually paid off, and in 1982, he joined Starbucks as director of marketing. The following year, Schultz traveled to Milan, Italy. That trip would change everything. In Italy, coffee wasn't just a drink. It was a culture. Espresso bars lined the streets, buzzing with energy. People gathered not just for coffee, but for conversation, community, and connection. Each barista knew their customers, and each cafe was alive with warmth. Howard was captivated. He thought, "Why can't we bring this experience to America? Why can't coffee be more than a commodity? Why can't it be a place of belonging?" He returned to Seattle bursting with excitement, eager to transform Starbucks into an Italian-style coffee house. But the founders weren't interested. They wanted to stay focused on selling beans, not beverages. Howard felt crushed. He had glimpsed a future that others couldn't yet see, and he wasn't willing to let that dream die. Frustrated but determined, Schultz decided to strike out on his own. In 1985, he left Starbucks and launched his own coffee company, Il Giornale. But starting wasn't easy. He needed investors, and most people laughed at the idea of Americans paying $2 or more for a cup of coffee. At the time, coffee in the US was cheap, mass-produced, and served in diners. Who would pay premium prices just for ambiance? Schultz knocked on hundreds of doors, pitching his vision. Most said no, yet he refused to quit. Slowly, he raised enough money to open his first store. Il Giornale was an instant hit. Customers loved the European-style experience, the music, the decor, and the sense of community. Howard's vision was coming to life. Then, fate intervened. In 1987, the original Starbucks owners decided to sell their company. Schultz saw his chance. Scraping together every resource and convincing investors once again, he bought Starbucks for $3.8 million. Now, the real journey began. Schultz set out to transform Starbucks from a small regional company into something the world had never seen before. His idea wasn't just to sell coffee. It was to create a third place between home and work. A place where people could relax, connect, and feel a sense of belonging. But growth came with challenges. Expansion required massive capital, operational discipline, and cultural consistency. Critics doubted him at every step. Some said the model would collapse. Others mocked the idea of coffee as a luxury experience. And yet Schultz persisted. By the 1990s, Starbucks stores were opening across the US. The green siren logo became a symbol of quality and community. By the early 2000s, Starbucks had expanded internationally, turning into a global brand. But Howard never forgot his roots. He remembered his father's struggles, the pain of being left behind by a system that didn't care. That's why he made employee benefits a cornerstone of Starbucks. Even part-time workers received health insurance, something unheard of in retail. Later, he introduced stock options and education benefits, giving employees opportunities his own family never had. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Starbucks faced backlash for expanding too fast, for pricing, and for losing its sense of community in the rush for profit. At one point, Schultz even stepped down as CEO. The company began to decline, losing focus. But in 2008, during the global financial crisis, Howard returned to lead Starbucks again. He closed underperforming stores, retrained baristas, and recommitted to the company's original values. It was painful but necessary. His leadership revived Starbucks, restoring it to strength. Today, Starbucks has over 30,000 stores worldwide, serving millions of customers every single day. It's not just a coffee shop, it's a cultural phenomenon. And at the heart of it all is the boy who grew up in poverty, watching his father struggle without dignity, vowing to create something better. Howard Schultz transformed his pain into purpose, his struggles into strength, and his vision into reality. He once said, "Dream more than others think practical. Expect more than others think possible. Care more than others think wise." Howard's story is proof that your beginnings don't define your future. Poverty, rejection, setbacks, they are chapters, not conclusions. So ask yourself this: what's your Starbucks? What's the vision inside you that others can't yet see? Howard Schultz could have accepted a life of limitation. He could have repeated the cycle of struggle he was born into. But instead, he chose to dream bigger, to push harder, to risk everything for a future that didn't exist yet. I love to hear from you. What dream are you chasing right now? No matter how impossible it seems, drop your answer in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want more inspiring journeys like Howard's, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one. Always remember, your circumstances don't define you. Your choices do. Just like Howard Schultz, you have the power to turn struggle into strength, vision into reality, and dreams into empires. The world isn't waiting for perfection. It's waiting for your courage. So start today.